Hello there.
Michelle, I was just telling the team that we are unfortunately not going to be able to accept your resignation. And no, I'm teasing, of course. I was a bummer to see that, but absolutely understand.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been like I said, it's been a fun ride. I was grateful for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. Yeah, thanks, Mark.
You've been incredible. You've taken us from like when I first started to where we are today, and you were an integral part of that. And I'm grateful. I know the community is grateful as well. So thank you, Michelle.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
Will this be your last meeting then, council member?
Yes.
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you so much. It's been absolutely fantastic to be able to work with you over all these years. I know that you've served for a long time, and we appreciate all of that.
And I'm sure you and I will continue to see each other.
I hope so.
I think we have a presentation with you in I think December.
Yeah. Oh, yes. That'll be good. So excellent. Now, I think that we are streaming right now and we are recording. Jeremy, can you confirm, please?
That is correct. We're streaming and recording.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So we have 2 out of 7. So we can keep track of quorum, and we'll let you know as soon as we're able to begin. Thank you. In the meantime, Kelly, if a few more minutes go by and we still don't have folks, if you don't mind just emailing folks and their assistants to see if they're still able to join. That'd be great. Thank you very much. Hello, Vice Mayor Duff. How are you? Oh, she was here.
She was in for a second and then she was gone.
I know. So, goodness.
We'll give them about 2 or 3 more minutes for people to jump in. It's pretty customary to let that happen.
Right. It's just barely 10 o'clock, and I know that a number of people have been having some connectivity issues, so sometimes that can kind of further delay folks. So, and sure. If Kelly can start reaching out, and we'll make sure that we can have quorum for the meeting.
You know, by this time, with all the Zoom meetings, you'd think I still struggle sometimes getting the right link, or we think it's the old hat, but it certainly was not as easy as it was. But it's certainly better than it was when we first started doing this.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you for setting this up, Amy. This is great that we're still able to get things done and still meet and communicate. So in spite of everything.
No, thank you. We're happy to support these virtual options, and even long term after a pandemic, it's keep on clinging to that hope of there is kind of something coming after the pandemic. We'll still continue at least a hybrid model because we found that just to be incredibly useful for folks.
Well, it is, and it's efficient too for folks that have to travel quite a bit. It's extremely efficient. And still have great participation and still get things done and makes us more productive. So it's good stuff. Yes,
definitely. No, I know I've passed through some days where I don't know how I would be able to get from one meeting to the next if I had to go in person, because I just one right after the other. Just being able to make that transition with a click of a button is so much easier than even having to get up and walk down the hall. So it definitely helps. Oh, she's back.
You guys had a great presentation, by the way. I didn't get to see all of them at the Arizona League of Cities, Amy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, well, you can always tell when somebody gives a good presentation when at the end of the presentation the stage is flooded with people asking questions. That was or the microphone is being flooded with people asking questions. So it was a great meeting.
Oh, thank you so much. No, thank you very much for coming. Hello, Vice Mayor Duff. How are you?
Okay. Hi. Sorry about that. I had a late study session this morning and trying to get on the Wi-Fi. Anyway, glad to be here.
Oh, no, that's fantastic. And thank you for coming to the league presentation as well. It was great to have you there too. Just really, really great to be able to talk to folks and see how they're addressing this, and just learn from what everybody's doing. There's so many good things going on right now. That's just a good time to be in this space.
Yeah, it was a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So Vice Mayor Duff, we have 3 out of 7 for quorum. We are reaching out right now to see if others are able to come. We did, our outreach indicated that we would have quorum for this meeting. And so we're hopeful that the committee members who said that they could be here are still able to make it. We understand that people are just extremely busy right now and sometimes not able to make meetings. But we're reaching out and hope to have an answer on that very soon.
Okay. Well, we're at 10:04, about to go to 10:05. Amy, you know, if we get quorum while this is happening, you'll let us know, or Kelly will let us know. So I'm going to kick off. I guess the call to order. I can still kind of go through some things. We're just not going to call the meeting to order. We're just going to go through some topics.
Right, exactly. So that's exactly correct, Chairman. So we can't really call the meeting to order right now because we don't have quorum, but we're happy to present the 2 informational items. And then if we do achieve quorum throughout that, then we can go back then and call the meeting officially to order and then take action.
All right, well, fantastic. Well, welcome everyone to all 2 of us or 3 of us to the MAG Human Services Committee and Initiatives Committee. Glad you're here. Hopefully a few more people will join us here in a few minutes, but as you know, this is a virtual meeting, so if you can be on mute, have the phones turned down, and please stay with us. But if you have a question, there's a reactions button down in the bottom right. We can't do chat because of open meeting requirements, but down at the bottom of the reactions, there are several things that you can push. I personally like the party whistle that I just put up on mine. If you have a question, we'd like to see that. And then I'll look for that, or Jeremy will let me know, or let Kelly know to call on you. So let's go into the, do we do the call to audience, Amy, without being called to order? We'll just skip right over. We can't approve the minutes. We'll just skip right over to some of the informational briefings I think you or Kelly will be providing.
Yes.
So thank you.
Absolutely. Mr.
All
Chairman,
right.
Thank you so much. We're happy. Jeremy, if you could please bring up the PowerPoint for item number 4. That's strictly an informational item, and so we won't be taking action. But if you could bring up the PowerPoint, please, for the regional homelessness update. Jeremy, you're not quite seeing the PowerPoint yet? Is that? There we go. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Really appreciate everyone for your time and for your support on this. If we have already met with you, we are sharing some similar information. So we appreciate your patience with that. Really, it's important though to be able to discuss with you the efforts that are underway in regard to these regional homelessness efforts. Next slide, please. So we've been talking with you about these efforts for months now. We've been engaged in these efforts for nearly a year, and you've provided really important feedback throughout that time. So we want to thank you for your continuing partnership in these efforts. The role that this committee can play and has been playing in these efforts is critically important. You're the conduit back to your communities, to your constituents, and the best regional plans are really very focused on local priorities and are responsive to local needs. So when we started these efforts, we're mindful of that dynamic. And so we are conducting extensive research and outreach. Through our outreach so far, we have reached more than 1,500 people, and you have been among them. You've come to the forums, you've come to the meetings, and you've provided your feedback throughout. And so it's been critically important then to keep that those diverse perspectives in mind as we start to build the infrastructure that the region will need to address homelessness more effectively. So these efforts intensively began in January, although earlier conversations began last October. So we've almost been working on this for a year now. In that time, we've accomplished a great deal, including the adoption of the regional strategies back in May. Thank you again for your support of those. And since June, then we've been very intensively focused on developing the action steps to implement those strategies. And so we're happy to provide this snapshot of where we are right now. And even with some of the wording and the action steps that I'll be sharing today, this is being further refined based on feedback from your communities, from your other elected officials, and from your staff as well. Jeremy, next slide, please. So, and just as a reminder for folks, with these efforts, we are keenly focused on ways that we can achieve progress that's measurable. So are we reducing the numbers of people experiencing homelessness? Can we increase access to homeless assistance programs throughout the entire region? People are able to stabilize more quickly, more efficiently when they are able to receive assistance where they are, and they're not having to travel from one community to the next. And in essence, we really want to keep people housed in a stable way and in a sustainable way as well. There are some very immediate needs related to this work, as well as long-term goals that need to be sustained. And so we're keeping both elements of that time, of the timing in mind as we proceed. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this meeting then is to hear from you. It's to listen to you, to hear your priorities and to understand your perspectives on this issue, particularly as it pertains to these action steps. We want to hear how you might like to be involved, either as a committee or as individuals or as different communities throughout the region, and to be able to understand where you're coming from and how you most would like to intersect with these issues. Jeremy, next slide, please. Thank you. And so then the question that we pose before you and that we'll be discussing today is, what are the immediate and the long-term actions that we can take as a region, primarily through the lens of local and tribal governments, knowing that any action taken by any one sector needs to be in partnership with others. And so we do have outreach to the nonprofit community, the philanthropic community in particular, to see how they would like to support these efforts as well. So one of the voices in the chorus. Next slide, please, Jeremy. So on the basis of all of this outreach and extensive research, we've been able to identify 3 main action steps. These are kind of more action step categories. And so we've had a regional homelessness coordination team meeting over the summer. They met 5 times. We just met as recently as this past Monday. And the team comprises representatives from your communities. So it's staff from the local and tribal governments coming together to help us identify which of the 14 strategies that were adopted back in May are the most salient and the most viable for regional action, particularly right now, and looking at what can we achieve by working together immediately and particularly monitoring that progress then over the next 5 years. And so these are the 3 main areas. The first one is really a governance model. It's how do we work together as local and tribal governments? How do we support you through MAG in that endeavor to enhance the infrastructure that is addressing homelessness right now? The second one is very much focused on housing. If we're going to end homelessness, we have to provide housing. That can be temporary housing, permanent housing, rental units. There's any number of different models of housing. We need a wide variety. We need a portfolio of housing options, and we'll be able to achieve that through this regional action plan. And then the third area is recognizing that homelessness is inherently multidisciplinary. It's not up to just any one sector. It's not up to just local and tribal governments or up to nonprofits or up to philanthropy. We have to be working together in order to make progress in this space. So next slide, please. Thank you, Jeremy. And so this is digging into the governance model then, and how are we addressing, how are we creating the forum in which local and tribal governments can work together most effectively? And the first one is conceivably the hardest one to address. What are the resources available then to support those partnerships? And so based on feedback that we've been receiving from local and tribal governments, elected officials, staff, we are looking at developing a regional resource, not necessarily where there's a physical transfer of funds, although that could be part of the discussion, but more so looking at how can each community, can they determine and how they're going to participate in these regional efforts. And it's looking at both financial as well as in-kind resources that should read financial and or in-kind, because for some communities, they don't have cash to contribute. Other communities do. Other communities can invest staff time. Other communities might have land. Other communities might have data. There's any number of different ways that communities can contribute to and be part of these regional efforts. And it's important to be able to meet communities where they are, keeping in mind that communities are in very different places when they enter this conversation. They have different access to resources, different needs. We want to create a mechanism, a way for communities to be able to participate in these regional efforts in a way that resonates with their ability. Also, keenly focus on data. All of these efforts have very much been data driven. And so we want to enhance the data. We have better data now than we ever have before, but we understand that there's ways to make that even better. And so we're working very closely with Solari, the host agency for our homeless management information system, to fine tune the data that's available, to be able to communicate and message and share that data more effectively, and to be able to do more as a result of that data analysis. So we're talking with different partners about putting that into play. You need support of your communities in order to fully engage in these regional efforts as elected officials. So we want to support you in that. We want to be able to partner with neighborhoods in these efforts. And sometimes community opposition, particularly to shelter and housing, can prevent that. And so we are having a lot of discussions about starting a regional public education campaign to be able to engage people as neighbors in entering this space and supporting these efforts in a way that really resonates with the character and the assets and the resources of their communities. And we want to hold ourselves accountable. So we are wanting to track progress on a quarterly basis, at least, to be able to work with you intensively and closely as leaders in helping to define these regional efforts, and being able to share with you our progress that's being made, and to be able to talk with you about how we might make some mid-course adjustments in order to further progress in this space. Any other questions at this time? Anything to add at this moment? Okay. Keeping our eyes on quorum, looks like we're up to 5 out of 7, which is fantastic. We'll continue to monitor that. Next slide, please. So housing options. There are any number of different housing options that are underway already or that could be made available. And so 2 points in particular to highlight in this area. One is that we conducted a regional scenario analysis on looking at local current data. So we're able to look at the data from the homeless management information system, and in particular to look at that system flow. Who's coming into the system? How many people? What are their demographics? How long are they staying in the system? And then when they leave the system, where are they going? Is that a positive placement in housing? Is that people returning to the streets? Is that people re-entering shelter all over again? So as a result of that analysis, we're able to determine that right now, in order to reduce homelessness just by 25%, not 100, just by 25%, we need 770 units of temporary housing. We need just over 1,200 units of permanent housing. And there are different models to make that happen, particularly in terms of temporary housing. That can be a traditional shelter, a low barrier shelter. That can be converting a hotel room into shelter space. It can be iHelp, which is faith-based agencies kind of hosting people on a rotating basis. So there's lots of different models, and a number of communities already have these new units underway. So we're reaching out right now, we're gathering the data to be able to determine how many units of temporary housing and permanent housing are under development right now. We'll be subtracting that from these targets here. And then we will be identifying the gap, and we know how much it costs because we've collected data from dozens of nonprofit agencies. And then we'll be able to determine this is how much we still need on top of what's underway, and this is how much it'll cost. I do want to pause for a moment. Chairman, it looks like we have quorum. I don't know if you want to go back at this point and officially call the meeting to order, and then we can pick up with this presentation after those initial items, or do you prefer to finish this first?
You know what? It may make sense for you to finish this information.
Okay.
We'll go back. So I don't want to lose the rhythm here. So thank you.
Okay, excellent. Happy to do that. Thank you. And so we do have a number of units underway. We do also have other activities in the space that supports these regional action steps. One of those is Maricopa County's extremely good regional landlord engagement initiative that's already launched. It's fully funded, and it's engaging landlords to rent to people experiencing homelessness, to accept vouchers, for example. This is important not just for adding units, but also for preserving units. We're finding that some landlords are, of course, incentivized by the very favorable housing market right now to sell their units or to charge a lot more for rent that people can't afford. And so we're wanting to provide incentives, to provide some accommodations to landlords to help them continue making those units available. It's critical that people have a place to go after they exit the homeless shelter and housing system, and rental units are often where people are needing to find housing. We do have some very good activity underway to improve the coordinated entry system. This was in part started by the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care, examining ways to improve the coordinated entry system to make it more equitable through a racial equity plan. We're also talking with some partners to be able to do a very comprehensive assessment, working very much with both the single and the family systems and those lead agencies, working in partnership with them to evaluate that coordinated entry system. Some improvements that could be made in this area specifically include being able to offer more access points throughout the region, getting back to that primary goal of helping people where they are and not making them move to one area or another to be screened through this coordinated entry system. And the other is looking at some of the screening tools themselves. The screening tool that's being used right now is not demonstrating that it's racially equitable, and we want to have a better tool in place. And so those are just two examples of the enhancements that could be developed and implemented as a result of this assessment. And then this third item is working very closely with agencies, local and tribal governments, nonprofit agencies who are coordinating with the justice courts to be able to reduce evictions. So some areas of focus here include being able to make more rental assistance available so that we can help to clear those judgments, and being able to make to help the landlords as well as the tenants to make each side of that equation whole to facilitate that tenant being able to continue renting from that landlord. Ultimately, really nobody wants to have an eviction. The landlord doesn't, the tenant doesn't. Let's provide the support so that doesn't have to happen. I want to pause for a moment and see if there's any questions or comments here. Okay, Jeremy, next slide, please. This is the third area of action steps that we're looking at right now, keeping in mind that it takes all sectors to address homelessness in order to have an effective regional response. This first one is primarily focused on the criminal justice system. There are local programs right now that are very effective that some communities have, but not all. And so the purpose of this item is to be able to encourage additional communities to start these programs in their individual communities, but also to be able to provide some regional coordination that can manifest in terms of training, technical assistance, a peer-to-peer network, to be able to build on the success that we're seeing through the community court programs and the misdemeanor repeat offender programs. These are diversion programs to help people before they enter that homeless system and to be able to keep them in housing and help them to access help so they can stabilize more quickly. The second bullet point is very focused on outreach teams. How can we increase the access that people have to services? We've heard a lot of concern, particularly around mental health and substance use treatment programs, and we want to be able to increase the access that people have to these very important programs. And so the outreach teams can play a critical role in that. The regional element of this is being able to coordinate among the teams and be able to ensure that we have good coverage throughout the entire region. The third bullet point is focused on expanding those employment opportunities. Many people experiencing homelessness already have jobs. They're just not able to earn enough money to be able to pay rent on an ongoing basis. A number of people can have jobs, but don't currently. And so we want to be able to help people to upskill, to obtain the documents, the skill sets, the knowledge that they need in order to maintain viable employment. This fourth bullet point is very focused at the local level, but again, with a regional element. So we want to support communities in forming those interdepartmental teams if they don't already have one. Some communities do, and they've been extremely effective. It's making sure that no matter where someone might intersect with your local government, whether that's through Parks and Rec, law enforcement, the library, human services, community services, even code enforcement, that everyone has the same information to help them access services quickly and efficiently. And it's a better use of your resources, and it helps people to stabilize in a more efficient way. The regional element to this is being able to support communities in forming these teams if they don't already have one, and being able to share information among the communities that do have teams so they can help to bend each other's learning curve and be able to share and replicate best practices as we find them throughout the region. Any comments or questions on this slide? Okay, next slide, please, Jeremy. So the next steps in that we have underway, next slide, please. These next few months are critical, and so we appreciate this opportunity to touch base with you. In this month in particular, we are meeting one-on-one with, we've extended the invitation to every single one of the cities, towns, counties, and Native nations that are in our region. We have more than 24 of those meetings already underway, and we hope to meet with everyone. In October, we'll be sharing the draft plan and invite feedback, further comments, in order to make any needed changes that would help this to be as viable as possible. And then in the months to come after that, being able to offer that for action and then to be able to proceed with implementation in January. Next slide, please. That's our contact information. If you have questions in particular about the data, TJ Reed on our staff is a pro at that and can go into deep detail with you. I'm also happy to take any questions or feedback that you might have at any time. And if you're interested in more information, we do have a wealth of materials available on that website. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions from the committee.
Amy, thank you for that. And yeah, this is the opportune time for questions. And so I mentioned as we opened, and I'll go ahead and open the meeting, and then we can get the questions if they're already into the record as well. And then we'll kind of follow up on the presentation that you just gave. First of all, good morning to everyone here as you're members of the MAG Human Services Committee and Initiatives Committee, Community and Initiatives Committee. If that's the room you're supposed to be in, you're in the right place. If not, catch up with somebody at MAG. But on behalf of the community and the committee members, I want to thank you for committing your time and insight into improving our community and responding to the challenges that we're facing. So thank you for being here. As a reminder, turn your mics on and clearly state your name before speaking so it enters into the record. And we want to ensure the members of the audience that is watching can hear you. So please mute your mics when you're not speaking to eliminate any feedback or noise. And since this is a virtual meeting, a roll call vote will be taken for each of the action items on the agenda. So phone only attendees will need to press star six, to unmute themselves. And I know that Kelly will hopefully remind us of that as we move into action items. And while I mentioned Kelly's name, she's going to be heading up our committee from the MAG Association of Governments Department. But Amy offered to introduce her to the committee real quick for us. So Amy, can you introduce us to Kelly real quick, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. We are very excited to introduce you to Kelly Williams. She comes with a fantastic career, particularly in public health. She spent the last 10 years working with the state of Arizona and brings great experience, great connections statewide in human services, in public health. She's hit the ground running. She's been with us for just over a month now, and we're very excited for her to join our team. So she will be your main point of contact for this committee. But please know that all of us at MAG are here to support you, here to serve you. And Kelly will be a great conduit to help facilitate that level of support. Thank you very much.
Kelly, we're delighted to have you, and I look forward to working with you even more. So, hey, just a real quick reminder, chat's disabled per open meeting requirements. So if you have a question, I mentioned it earlier, let's go into the reactions button down at the bottom, I think bottom right in the toolbar, and just throw something up. I'll show you an example real quick. You can see up in the top left of my screen. If you have a question, pop that up, and Kelly will reach out to you and get you called on. So Kelly, I think now we'll begin the roll call, and then I think we'll follow that up with ask if there's any other members that are participating that weren't mentioned. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the wonderful welcome, Chair and members of the committee. I would look to my colleague, Lori Sapp, to conduct roll call, please.
Oh, okay, sure. I didn't know I was going to do that, but I can certainly do that. I have my list here of those who are I think who are members of the committee. Vice Mayor Wally Campbell. No.
You prefer me to do the roll call, Lori?
Yeah, well, yes, that would be great. Thanks.
Sure. Okay, bear with me. This is my first committee that I'm staffing at MAG. So if I stumble a little bit, I appreciate your patience and grace. For those in attendance, I don't believe Member Wally Campbell is with us. Councilmember Campbell, are you present? No. Councilmember Klein. Councilmember Condi. Vice Mayor Dorsey.
Kelly, looks like Councilmember Klein just joined.
Oh, wonderful. Vice Mayor Duff.
Here.
Supervisor Gallardo. Councilmember Hess,
Present.
Vice Mayor Janik,
Present.
Councilmember Navarro,
Present.
Councilmember Patena,
Yes.
Councilmember Yenties, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, and Vice Mayor Stewart.
Yes. Great. Thank you for that. Okay, so we have quorums, so we're going to keep moving through some of the initiatives here. I think we have an opportunity for public comment on the agenda that was provided ahead of the meeting. I don't believe staff has received any comment. It would be the right opportunity for somebody to weigh in if they had a question, if it's the audience, without notifying beforehand.
Correct. We have not received any public comments,
Okay,
Chair.
call to the audience. Okay, I think we'll move on. No calls from the audience. So I think we'll move on to approval of the meeting minutes from May 20th. Are there any questions before we entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve?
This is Councilmember Hess, and I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion from Councilmember Hess, and I need a second, please.
Second from Councilmember Betty Janik.
We have a second from Councilmember Betty Janik. Let's do a roll call vote of all the members participating, please. Kelly, can you take care of that? Well, why don't we just do a voice vote real quick, or everybody can do a reaction vote. All in favor of.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman. If we can see everybody and hear everyone, then that would be fine. But we do need to indicate very specifically how each member voted, and virtually roll call vote is the cleanest way to do that. I'm sorry to interrupt there, but just want to offer that information for you.
All right, great. We want to make sure we follow the rules of order here. Kelly, go ahead.
Sure. Councilmember Klein. You are muted.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Duff.
Aye.
Councilmember Hess.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Janik.
Aye.
Councilmember Navarro.
Aye.
Councilmember Patena.
Aye.
Councilmember Yenties. Oh, I apologize. She's not participating. Vice Mayor Stewart, Chair Stewart.
Aye.
Is there anybody I missed? Thank you.
All right. Well, with the roll call and the votes, the motion passes. So we just walked through the regional homeless strategy update. If anybody needs a copy of that, please let Kelly know, and we'll push that out via email if that isn't already in your email boxes. We'll move on to item number 5, which is an informational briefing, I believe, on the MAG Human Service Committee initiatives for this year. So this will be presented by Amy St. Peter. She's the deputy executive of the. I lost my document there. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. The purpose of this presentation is to share with you a bit of context and history around the role of this committee, and to be able to explore with you how you might like to best engage in your efforts together. Jeremy, next slide, please. So we are eager to be able to discuss future areas of activity and focus with you, and in particular to receive your direction on next steps. We want your passions, your priorities to be able to drive the work of this committee. Next slide, please. So this is a bit of context, historical context about the committee, just in case this is helpful. I know that we do have some new members, and perhaps as a refresher for members who've been with us for a long time. MAG formed first as a council of governments back in 1967. So we've been in existence for more than 50 years. We formed as a metropolitan planning organization after that, which introduced a transportation focus. But initially, our first 2 committees were on building codes and specifications and details for construction. And in our early years, we had a very heavy human services focus. And in particular, as a result of that, back in 1976, this committee was formed and the Human Services Division was formed in general. This committee was initially very focused on developing a regional human services plan that we developed as part of our contract at the time with the Arizona Department of Economic Security to recommend allocations for the social services block grant. We no longer receive that funding from DES. We, of course, still continue to develop those allocation, the recommendations. And we'll actually be starting that process with you in partnership with you very soon. We have not been developing a regional human services plan since that contract ended. So the committee has been focused on any number of different emerging issues. When the committee first formed, and just for over 20 years, the committee was addressing a variety of different issues, including homelessness and domestic violence very specifically. In 1999, the Continuum of Care came to MAG. It was previously hosted by 2 different local communities until it came to MAG for that regional focus. And we also formed the Regional Domestic Violence Council in 1999 as well, as a result of a tragic death in the region, and regional council saying, we can't continue this to happen. I think that's important to note because now the Continuum of Care, which is a separate entity, it's not a MAG committee, but it's hosted by MAG, and the Domestic Violence Council, which is a MAG committee, they both have as their primary function homelessness and domestic violence. So this committee is very involved, of course, in a supportive role in that space, in addition to any number of different activities, issues, or areas of focus that this committee would like to take on. Back in 2015, we had a bit of a regroup with this committee, and we changed our name. The committee used to be the Human Services Coordinating Committee because it was coordinating human services issues on behalf of the Regional Council, and the technical committee, the Human Services Technical Committee, which comprises local government staff, was reporting directly to the Coordinating Committee. Because we had other committees like the Continuum of Care and Domestic Violence Council, and also because we recognize that the work of this committee is deeply supported and dependent on partnerships with the nonprofit community. And so back in 2015, we changed the name through an act of the Regional Council driven by this committee to the Human Services Community Initiatives Committee. At the time, we talked about a number of different changes in addition to the name change, such as expanding the membership to include nonprofits and other partners out in the community, again, to reflect that community focus. And also we talked about having the development of a regional human services action agenda to ensure that we were not just assessing the state of human services throughout the region and sharing best practices, but also taking action as a result of that. So elements of that evolution have manifested, and others maybe not as deeply. And so those are just brought to you for your consideration as well. And here we are in 2021, taking a look at how do you want to further evolve as a committee and how can we support you in that evolution? Next slide, please. So just to give the broader context, so this is the organizational development committee chart for MAG as an agency. And so the policy committees are in blue, and this is considered to be a policy committee. Your counterpart with the Human Services Technical Committee is considered to be just that, a technical committee. You can see we have a number of technical committees at MAG. The way the issues generally move up through the committee cycle is that they will start with the technical committees because all of our work is deeply based in data. And then it moves up that chain, it moves up through that committee structure. In human services, of course, we work very closely, and one area of focus for us, at least internally, is to cross-fertilize more among the human services committees. Jeremy, next slide, please. And then being able to move up that committee structure to management committee, and then executive committee is a smaller subset. And then ultimately regional council generally has final approval on all policy positions, definitely on any advocacy positions. So this is the structure into which this committee fits and the way that issues flow through the overall committee structure here at MAG. Next slide, please. So this is a slate of current responsibilities in the materials that were distributed prior to this meeting. You can see that this committee has really taken a leadership role in a number of different issues, a wide variety. I think part of the real value of this committee in particular is that you can be very responsive and very nimble in addressing emerging priorities and opportunities needs that we might see throughout the region. And so really first and foremost, it's to incubate those best practices, it's to track those emerging issues and being able to provide leadership in that space. We also have some ongoing responsibilities from one year to the next, such as the social services block grant allocation recommendations, also being able to weigh in and lend support to the Section 5310 project listing, which is primarily agencies transporting older adults and people with disabilities, and being able to provide mainly capital awards in terms of vans for the most part, but also being able to support the mobility managers who help to connect people with those essential transportation services. And then also, and this is an item that pertains to the entire agency, but our Title VI plan is something that we take very seriously at MAG, and we appreciate the support and the leadership from this committee and weighing in on that plan as it's developed and updated each year. Next slide, please. So this committee has been discussing some different options, and we wanted to be able to reflect these back to you and to receive and to hear any additional areas of focus that you might want to consider. The Regional Homelessness Action Plan is something that this committee has been helping to really shepherd and lead in since we started these efforts with you back in January, and we'd hope to have your continued partnership in that space. We have also heard that there's interest. There is a request in particular at your last meeting back in May to hear about how our local and tribal governments responding to mental health needs, both in terms of homelessness as well as the general population. We are addressing that request, and we'll have that for you at a future meeting coming very soon. We do have the Regional Human Services Action Agenda that was discussed back in 2015. That's something that could be further assessed and possibly considered for action moving forward. Racial equity is really taking a very key area of focus for us throughout human services, throughout MAG, and wanted to offer that as well. We know that you value racial equity, and that you might like to contribute your leadership in this space as well. We do have extensive efforts in terms of being age-friendly through Age-Friendly Arizona, and that those efforts are ongoing. We're working with more than 24 communities throughout the state of Arizona to help them to better connect older adults with people of all ages in their communities, and would love to have any support or leadership that you might lend to that space as well. We have a regional domestic violence council whose primary focus is domestic violence. Also, sexual assault is closely related to that. Would love to hear if you'd like to have any presentations on that, if you'd like to play a role in that space as well. Looking across the board, we're wanting to cross-fertilize our programmatic areas of homelessness, domestic violence, human services, transportation, among all of the different areas of focus and our committees here at MAG, and would love to hear if you have any priorities in that space. In terms of some of the activities that this committee has undertaken, we've held annual human services conferences for years now. Those have been very focused on specific themes such as healthy communities. They've also been very broad and have intersected with all of these different program areas and more. We could offer trainings and a peer-to-peer network, and would love to hear any questions, ideas that you might have to help build out the portfolio of work that this committee is very focused on. Next slide, please. So next steps that we'd love to discuss with you. Next slide, please. So this month, we'd love any feedback that you might have, any questions, if there's any data that we can gather for you and analyze for you and circle back with you on. We'd love to be able to do that with you. To hear your direction in this would be fantastic. Just as a heads up, next month we will start to begin that process and to develop the social services block grant allocation recommendations. And we'll be circling back with you on that. The technical committee will start with that data analysis and then be able to provide the results of their analysis to you for your consideration. In November, we'd love to be able to confirm those areas of focus so we know how to position our time in support of your direction. And then in January, then being able to implement those next steps with you in close partnership. Next slide, please. And Kelly will be your main point of contact, but I am always here to support as well. And if you're interested in taking a look at some more information about the committee, the link to that information on our website is there as well. But that does conclude our presentation. And Mr. Chairman, I turn it back over to you if you have any questions or if you'd like to further dialogue with the committee members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. That's a great outline of kind of the purpose and what we're doing and why we're here. And so I think in previous, I've been on this committee for almost 4 years, a little over 4 years. And what I've seen from previous chairmen, Michelle Hess and Wally Campbell, was this cross-pollination of ideas. And I can remember a lot of ideas being shared, a lot of ideas coming from different cities. But I remember working with Councilmember Navarro on a wastewater initiative that was being taken, they were doing in Tempe, and we were able to sort of talk about that and have a meeting in Chandler because we thought that was a good idea. Those are things that we can obviously, we're looking forward to doing with this committee and getting laser focused on some big rocks, if you will, some big initiatives in order to help the community. So thank you for that outline, what you just shared there. I think that this is an action item as it relates to coming up with some ideas, what we want to focus on as a committee. Is that correct, Amy?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and so what you've outlined above are can you go back to those slides, Jeremy? Yeah, right.
Oh,
Keep going.
one more, Jeremy, and then one more after that, please. And then the next one, please. No, you're going backwards. Let's go forward, please.
It's a bulleted list.
And the next slide, please.
There
you go. Stay right
There.
there, Jeremy. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is a great opportunity for folks to kind of, and I know virtually it's kind of tough, raise your hand. And if there are items that are on this that we'd want to see as a deeper focus, or we want to get more energy behind each of these things. I know personally for me, and I'll just be the first, is the Regional Homelessness Action Plan is something that I want to hear about, virtually every meeting that we have, and find out how we're tackling this and what we can take back and forth between our cities and throughout the county to help alleviate this issue and help as many people as we can. So that's just one sort of kickoff idea, and that's on here. Is there anything else that we're missing here, or anything that you'd like to a little bit more energy behind that you're seeing on this list to the committee? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Bill Patena from the city of Peoria. I have a question for Amy St. Peter. Amy, can you just briefly go over the responsibilities of the Human Services Technical Committee for me and perhaps for the committee?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Councilmember, for that question, and members of the committee. The role of the Human Services Technical Committee is to support this committee. And so very, very similar outline in terms of those current areas of responsibility. It's around those ongoing issues such as the Social Services Block Grant, the Title VI Plan, and the Section 5310 project listing. It's also with emerging opportunities and needs such as a Second Responders Appreciation Day that you help to make possible. And so we had a great response on that. And then the role of this committee then is really advising the MAG Regional Council. So the technical committee reports to you report to Regional Council, and then we're able to have a more comprehensive response to human services as a result of that.
Thank you. I have one more question, and please tell me if I'm off base on this. I'll go back in my corner and be quiet. But my question is in the area of focus and activity. I'm very supportive of trying to house homeless people. It's very, very important to our community. My question is this: how are we going to? You're dealing with mental health issues, perhaps some issues. People who just don't want to be housed. But my question is, if we're going to house people, they're going to have to pay rent. Are we doing anything or addressing jobs and job retention?
Absolutely, Councilmember and members of the committee. Yes, employment is one of the main areas of action that we're vetting right now to include in that Regional Homelessness Action Plan. And so the action plan includes 3 main areas. And in the 3rd area, that's where we're talking about employment. We do absolutely agree that people can work. Many people who are experiencing homelessness are working right now. Some just don't earn enough to be able to pay for rent, particularly considering how much rents have increased over the past 10 years. Over the past 10 years, the supply of affordable housing in terms of rental units has decreased by 60%. And the housing stock at $200,000 or less has decreased by 60% as well. And so we have many people who are working but just aren't earning enough. And so we are looking at increasing and expanding employment opportunities to help people to upskill so they can hold down jobs that earn a higher wage, also helping people to be able to get jobs in the first place. Sometimes they have jobs, it's not enough, they're underemployed. Other people don't yet have jobs. And so we want to be able to connect people with employment so that they can sustain themselves after they receive that assistance.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Vice Mayor Duff, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you very much. I agree with Chair Stewart that we need to put a lot of emphasis on the homelessness and coming together as a region and sharing best practices and finding those partnerships that we can work together as cities. We have once in a lifetime opportunity through these federal dollars to really make some lasting change for our communities. So I agree, really focusing on that every meeting. You know, how are we doing? What are those conversations? What are those actions? So I think that's very important. I'd also like to bring up the human side of climate change. And some of those issues are around extreme heat and finding those, sharing best practices and solutions, ideas, like cooling centers, having that mapped, you know, digitally. I know in Mesa we've done that, but you know, how can we further that work? And maybe in tree grants, promoting shade. We find that 30% shade in an area will decrease the temperature about 5%. Utility costs on our low income and what that means in our extreme heat and the heat related deaths and illnesses. Anyway, best practices, ideas. There's a lot of conversation about that. And I think we're just forming ideas of that. And I'd like to explore it more. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Vice Chair Duff, thank you very much for that. We'd be happy to circle back with a presentation on our Regional Heat Relief Network and look at some of the results that we're seeing out of that program. Also, MAG serves on ASU's Heat Advisory Council, and they've been looking at building up more resiliency. And so they have an excellent presentation. They've done some very good analysis in that space. And we can certainly ask them to come in and present that work as a way to provide some information about the analysis that's been done and to be able to explore further opportunities with this committee.
That's perfect. I know we've had conversations and presentations before, and this is an accelerated conversation that we're having in the community. So having that update of where we are and where we can come together and do more. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Be happy to. Thank you very much.
That's great. And again, this is a great opportunity for anybody to raise their hand if there's anything they'd like to add to the agenda or focal areas. Like we just heard, you know, how climate is affecting our homelessness population, as well as other things as it relates to that, as well as employment opportunities to be able to help those can find affordable housing, be able to make the type of income that they need to be there. So these are emphasis areas. So if you have others that you'd like to add to this list, Amy and Kelly will take notes, and then we'll make sure that those are folded into our agendas moving forward. And we don't have to do it all today if there's something that comes later, but we will take a motion to sort of approve this tentative agenda, and we'll layer these in and then approve that on our next meeting. So any other thoughts? Okay, hearing none, I will reference back to, we are on item number 5. So love to take a motion to approve that. If there's any comments before that, I think we've closed those. Let's take a motion to approve those suggestions for topic items.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So we've heard a continued emphasis on homelessness as well as the extreme heat response. And we're happy to follow up on both of those items.
Yeah, and I believe the employment piece.
And employment, yes, as part of the homelessness efforts, absolutely.
Okay,
In addition
great.
to the things you have listed on that slide that we're looking at, those are all very important as well.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
Okay.
I'll go ahead and make a motion. So this is Vice Mayor Duff Mesa to accept the focus items for our year or whatever.
Okay. Take a second, please.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Patena.
Yes.
Motion by Vice Mayor Duff. All those in favor, we'll take a roll call. Kelly?
Yes. Councilmember Klein.
I could read her lips. She said yes. All right, we're good. You need to hear her though, I think, for the recording. Yeah, we're not getting her. Let's go to the next one. We'll see.
We're okay on that one. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Duff,
Aye.
Councilmember Hess,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Janik,
Aye.
Councilmember Navarro,
Aye.
Councilmember Patena,
Aye.
and Chair Stewart.
Aye.
Have I forgotten anyone or overlooked anyone? Okay, Chair.
All right, thank you. Motion passes. So on item number 6, we'll be discussing October as a Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And Kelly, I think you have a presentation that you'll be sharing with us.
I do, yes. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Again, thank you for having me this morning, and I'm looking forward to working with you on this committee. Today, I wanted to bring to your attention that the MAG Human Services Division is focused in October on bringing attention to domestic violence across the region. And I wanted to give you a brief update on a few of the activities that we will be participating in and helping to organize. Next slide, please. Yesterday at our regional council meeting, the resolution to support Domestic Violence Awareness Month was passed unanimously by the regional council, recognizing that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. With that in mind, MAG staff are gathering events for an online domestic violence awareness calendar that will be published to our website. If you have any events that you are hosting in your community, whether you're lighting buildings purple or you're having an all-day staff purple day, purple is the official color of domestic violence, or other events, we would appreciate you sending those my way, and we'll make sure to include them on the calendar and promote them across the region. Furthermore, we've partnered with the Department of Economic Security, the Area Agency on Aging, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, and other partners to host a domestic violence awareness press conference next Tuesday. You are all invited to attend via the MAG Facebook page. It will begin at 10 a.m. At the press conference, we will have several speakers, including Mayor Giles from the city of Mesa, and we will also have a survivor of domestic violence share her story. The conference is specifically bringing attention to elder abuse. It's estimated that there are 5 million older Americans that suffer from some sort of abuse annually in the United States. And we would like to draw attention to how to recognize those signs of if someone might be being abused and how to help direct them into care. It also gives us a great platform to support and to promote the Vulnerable Adult Protocol, which was passed in August by MAG committees, and it is published to our website as well. The protocol highlights how individuals who are older or individuals who are vulnerable who may have suffered from abuse can be and should be handled with very specific best practices on how evidence should be gathered, how individuals should be prosecuted who have abused those individuals, etc. Those best practices and that protocol came together after more than 5 years of conversation with local stakeholders across the region. And again, we're really excited to have that protocol published to our website. So we thank you for your support of domestic violence awareness in the month of October. If you have any further questions, please, next slide. Feel free to reach out to me directly. And Chair, I return the floor to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kelly, and that was very thorough. I appreciate that. Are there any questions from the committee about the presentation? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 7. Requests for future agenda items. Are there any requests by any member of the committee for future agenda items? And so what that means is if anybody has a topic like we just talked about, employment or climate change or things like that as it relates to some of the initiatives that we talked about earlier, are there any of those that you would like to maybe discuss in a future agenda or share best practices that you have in your city as it relates to something like that with the rest of the committee so that we can take those things back?
I don't know, this is Vice Mayor Janik. I don't know if you saw the reaction. I think it went in. I would like to see a little more discussion on our success and how we're dealing with mental health issues. They are very, very difficult issues to resolve, even in a well-financed community with wonderful healthcare. They're very difficult issues. And I would like maybe to know kind of what percentage of the people we're dealing with we feel have mental health issues, and how many of them we've been able to get into programs to help with these issues, and see what the progress is on that, short and long term. So thank you.
Great
Very
addition
much.
to the topic. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Janik. We did receive that request and we are working on that. And we're planning to have that be either at the next meeting or the one right after that, pending the availability of speakers and data. But we very much have that on our radar and agree that's a high area of concern. Thank you.
Okay. Going once. Okay, we'll move on. So we'll come to item number 8, comments from the committee. Are there any comments or announcement from any of the committee members? I have one, but I'm gonna save it for last. Okay. Well, my announcements, I want to recognize Councilmember Hess. She has served on this committee as a chairman and as a member for a number of years, and she has offered invaluable information, runs a great meeting, but she's been integral in organizing, I think, what you're seeing today, which is a unified effort to try to help the community. And this will be her last meeting, but I did want to wish her well. And I wanted to thank her for her service and everything that she does in her community and everything she's done for our committee. So thank you, Councilmember Hess.
Thanks, Vice Mayor Stewart. That's very kind words. Really, it was the staff in this committee. It was so fun to work with over the last couple of years, the paramedicine program and some of the concussion efforts and homelessness. It was a great ride and I wish you all well. And I'm always just a phone call away and would love to continue to be a resource to all of you in any way I can. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate your mentorship. Okay, we will then, I think we're at a point where we can take a motion for adjournment.
This is Councilmember Hess and I'll move to adjourn.
So
I'll
moved.
I'll second
Amy.
that if it needs a second. Betty Janik.
We have a motion and a second. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye.